Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. My name is Alana Kessler, and I am your host. And I'm excited about today's topic. Today's topic is all about nervous system. Nervous system is really trendy in our wellness world these days. So, we're going to talk about how your nervous system affects overeating, how it affects your relationship to food, just how it affects really everything in your life. And we will explore exactly how your body reacts to emotions and situations through your nervous system and how certain things, experiences, dynamics can dysregulate or unbalance your nervous system. And then we'll go even deeper into what it all means in the context of emotional overeating, and I'll try to keep it as simple as possible, but we're definitely going to go into some sciencey terms here. So, just keep your ears peeled. This is going to definitely take a deep turn into some topics and terms that maybe you haven't heard of before, but I'm one of those people that loves understanding the nitty gritty about certain things. And so I hope that you're as excited about this topic today as I am. So, regulating your nervous system is literally probably the most important foundational anchor that healing my own relationship to food had, and is probably the one of the biggest anchors that I instill and install with my own clients when I'm supporting them in healing their relationship with food as well. So, to understand why having a balanced nervous system is so important, we need to understand how the nervous system works in our body. And when we think about the nervous system, we have to understand that the nervous system is really it's the switchboard. It's the Oz behind the curtain. It is essentially the power board for our hormone balance, our emotional balance, our digestive balance, our organ system balance. Everything is impacted by the ability of the nervous system to be regulated, right? So if we have a regulated nervous system, our mood will be better, our weight will be better, our hormone balance will be better, our digestion, our sleep, and even the way that we feel in the world. Our relationships will feel better. The way that we feel seen, the way we feel loved, the way we feel appreciated. All of these things will feel better when we have a harmonized nervous system. And let's go into the two main sections of the nervous system. So there's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is the feature of the nervous system that is activated when we're in survival mode. It's the fight or flight mechanism of our nervous system. When the sympathetic nervous system is activated, our body goes into fight mode, flight mode, and the hormones associated with that, like adrenaline, epinephrine, are all released. Okay, so this is like you're being chased by a wild animal and you need to survive. That is the sympathetic nervous system. That is the classic definition, and that is the classic function of the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system is the parasympathetic nervous system is the rest and digest. So this is the part of our nervous system that connects to our higher cognitive function. It allows our body to relax and respond appropriately, right? So our parasympathetic nervous system is directly related to our ability to exist as mature people. It's maturity. And it also gives us that feeling of safety. It gives us that feeling of belonging. And it also creates the conditions for our body to be in homeostasis, for our body to be in harmony. And ideally, these two systems work together to keep our mind, our body, and our body chemistry and everything in balance. However, unfortunately, a lot of people in today's society are walking around with dysregulated nervous systems because of many reasons. Reason number one is our society's value system is very much anchored and led with a go, go, go mentality. The value system of today's society is, what can I do? How can I achieve? How can I be better? How could I be more involved? What can I consume? Right? So much external stimuli, so much chasing. It almost feels like we're constantly running forward. It's almost like we're creating something to chase us so that we could chase after something. And what that really is we're consistently turning the switch on of our sympathetic nervous system just by virtue of living in today's society. Because every time that we open up our social media, every time that we compare ourselves to someone else, every time that we feel like we have FOMO, every time that something arises in our life that, every time our brain overfunctions, that is activating our sympathetic nervous system. And it's not like it's not like any of these things are do or die. It's not like any of these things are about surviving, but our body and our nervous system actually processes it like it is. So the value system of our current society tricks our nervous system into thinking that we need to run and we need to chase. Another trigger of a dysregulated nervous system where we are in survival mode is something called complex trauma. So complex trauma is trauma that we have living in our body from when we were young. Okay, so this doesn't mean that you necessarily had something traumatic happen to you, but it's just a collection of unsafe emotional experiences that your body has processed over time and has not healed, and basically has just created scar tissue around. And that scar tissue is now in the form of a dysregulated nervous system. Okay, another trigger could be actual traumatic experience happened to you, like a car accident or something else. A dysregulated nervous system could just come from stress, a change in of a routine, lifestyle factors, illness, right? So a dysregulated nervous system happens when our bodies are pulled out of that parasympathetic rest and digest, and it's not by choice. Okay, it's a spontaneous occurrence. Okay, and what's important to recognize is that healing a dysregulated nervous system isn't necessarily that you never get dysregulated. It just means that you notice that you're dysregulated, you have the tools to regulate yourself, and you more quickly and efficiently can get yourself back into rest and digest faster. But it's not about never being dysregulated. That's likely never going to happen as long as we are living our lives. And so recognizing that concept is that we're not trying to never be dysregulated. That's not the goal. We're not trying to never be dysregulated. We're trying to find a way to regulate and feel confident that we can regulate ourselves efficiently. And when we talk about how having a dysregulated nervous system leads to different uncomfortable emotions, the uncomfortable emotions that you'll most likely feel are anxiety, irritability, edginess, um, depression, brain fog, dissociation, body dissociation. And it's really important that we start to make that connection between those emotions and sensations and feelings, and recognizing that, wow, my nervous system is probably dysregulated, and then being willing to zoom out, disentangle from the immediacy of what your fight or flight mechanism is going to want you to do, which likely is find a coping mechanism to deal with this anxiety, irritability, and edginess. And that's how emotional eating plays a part here, is that emotional eating often is that coping mechanism, especially if you're listening to this podcast, that you do go to when you feel dysregulated. So it's important that we, instead of getting caught up in the coping mechanism and then how we feel about ourselves afterwards, we can interrupt ourselves earlier. So right when we feel anxious or irritable, we can recognize and say, wow, my nervous system is probably dysregulated. What trigger in my life is happening around me right now that might be causing that? So you start to zoom out. And that is a training for your nervous system. The second that you zoom out, you're putting yourself into rest and digest. The second you pause, you're putting yourself into rest and digest. And for me, that is something that happens on a weekly occurrence for me, right? And it's definitely more micro than it used to be, but now when I get dysregulated, now when I start to get anxious and I start to notice myself reaching for snacks, going back to that old kind of voice in my head about going to food comes in, I immediately know that I'm dysregulated. I don't often know why I'm dysregulated, but that's the work, right? The work is that I can interrupt my behavior. I can interrupt myself between the negative feelings of anxiety and the behavior of going to turn to food to eat. And that's a skill that I've developed. That's a skill that I teach my clients how to do. And that is the essential skill. And once I can interrupt the behavior, I could then turn towards the trigger and I could start to focus and turn my attention and attunement to healing the trigger. And some of the ways that I like to do that is through getting in touch with my body, right? So making sure that I am in my body. And that, what I mean by in my body is that I use my body and I feel like I'm connected to it. Because one of the big symptoms of emotional dysregulation is dissociation from the body. So one of the ways to regulate is to get into the body. And you could do that through yoga, usually slow movements. So yoga, tai chi, walking is great. That's really helpful. Another thing that I do when I am really, really dysregulated, and I know that I'm dysregulated in a very intense way when I feel totally disconnected and I get brain fog. I don't know about you, but this is for me. I get brain fog and I can't really connect and communicate with other people. I just shut down. Usually that means that something very, very deep inside my brain was triggered. This is normally like something that maybe I consciously can't really process. And for that, I've used brain spotting. And brain spotting is based on the belief that certain eye positions can evoke certain emotions, sensations, and memories because they access specific brain spots where traumatic memories are stored. So, brain spotting is amazing because it helps to dissolve some of these scar tissue that live in our body. Some of these like complex traumatic emotional experiences. Other ways to regulate your nervous system are deep breathing exercises, grounding in nature, like earthing, right? Walking barefoot in the grass, walking barefoot on a hardwood floor, laying down in grass, laying down in a hardwood floor, getting a massage if you feel comfortable with that, right? So getting into our body can often happen through hearing. So just make sure that you know yourself. That's why movement, slow movement is really, really good because it gets you connected to your body on your own terms. And it's so important to make sure that you do these things on a regular basis and you practice noticing that you're dysregulated because that is essentially the first step to regulating your nervous system. And again, it's not something that you graduate from. We're not going to graduate from having a dysregulated nervous system, but it's just about recognizing and knowing yourself better so that when you're dysregulated, you could support yourself in regulating your nervous system so that we don't turn to maladaptive coping mechanisms like emotional eating anymore. Okay? So it's so key because doing that will help with all of the goals that you have related to food. It'll help you in loving food, it'll help you in creating healthy attachments to food, and it will help you with your unwanted weight loss if that's one of your goals. So, these are some of the reasons why regulating your nervous system is so key. And so that's all for today with nervous system regulation and how it impacts our relationship to eating. And I'm so glad you joined me today for the episode because it's so important to understand how you can create a balanced nervous system and how when you create a balanced nervous system, you get more emotional security and you just have a greater capacity to handle stress and create a life that you love. So don't forget to join me again next week with another new episode about emotional eating. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with those who may benefit from this empowering message and knowledge. I have free resources on my site to help you on your journey to loving food and losing weight. Just go to www.bewellbyak.com. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.